Hey everybody, this is Mark Lennon, and this is your Gamecocks Week in Review. Alright, so what do we know about the Gamecocks after 2 weeks of football? In my opinion, still not a whole lot. They played against Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. They won against Vandy, and they lost against Mississippi State. Now in week 1 against Vanderbilt, we weren't exactly sure who they are. They had a good defense, they played pretty well, but South Carolina did beat them. But now last week, Vanderbilt looked awesome. They scored 47 points, and they were one of the 10 teams that went 10-0 in the SEC for the non-conference schedule. So props to the SEC for going 10-0 against non-SEC opponents over the weekend. You have Mississippi State. Against South Alabama, Mississippi State did not look good at all. In fact, they looked like they just didn't even belong in the SEC. But this week, Mississippi State looked a lot better against South Carolina. They were fired up and they were ready to play. In fact, their quarterback looked a little bit like Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, and Dak Prescott, all guys coached by Dan Mullen, Mississippi State's current head coach. So, maybe South Carolina is a little better than we thought. Maybe they aren't. It's still too early to tell, simply because we're not sure what these teams are going to do. Vanderbilt can go on to be a good team. Mississippi State can go on to be a good team as well. Only time will tell. But here's one thing we do know about our South Carolina Gamecocks. We need to find a way to tell Coach Muschamp to convince his guys that the start of the game is actually the second half. For whatever reason, South Carolina plays great in the second half in the 2 games this far this season. So, in fact, they have scored 27 points and only allowed 3 in the second half of their games, whereas in the first half of all their games, they have been outscored 34-0. So if we can find a way to convince these guys that it's the second half of the game, not the actually first half of the game, maybe we'll win these games and string together 2 good halves. I don't know. Another thing, quarterback. What do we know about the quarterback situation? Still not a lot. In my opinion, both guys played well when you consider everything that was going on in the last game. Mississippi State is a very physical team, and the offensive line did not protect well at all. So I felt like Perry Orth, who's a pocket passer, didn't have enough time to make the plays that he would normally make. Then you have Brandon McElwain, who's a dual threat guy who can get out of the pocket, run around, and chunk the ball around a little bit. He actually played a lot better than Orth when you look at the stats. But I think that was more a fact that it's more of that McElwain is just a more mobile guy. So he was able to move around and not have to worry about protection quite as much. Now, in my opinion, you need the more athletic guy at quarterback, especially in the SEC, where quarterback play is so important. Unless you're Alabama, you just beat everybody. Doesn't matter. So let's look at South Carolina situation. The 3 years under Steve Spurrier where South Carolina flourished the best is when they had our superstar Connor Shaw, a dual threat guy, a guy who could pass the ball, a guy who can run the ball, a guy who on 3rd and 11 would pick up a first down with his feet. That was Connor Shaw, and that's what we had. Now Connor wasn't as good of a passer as maybe Dylan Thompson was, but the dual threat gave him the ability to extend plays, and that was important, and that's, to me, one of the reasons why South Carolina went 11-2 those 3 years. So, you have Brandon McElwain, who I think is a dual threat guy. He is a guy that can extend plays with his feet, and maybe this week would be a good week to start Brandon McElwain. I mean, we're going against the East Carolina team. That's not a bad team. They're a very good offensive team, but defensively, I think there's a few things that South Carolina exploit. So, that being said, I think maybe McElwain, this is the good week for him to get started. Give him the start, see what he does. Just because he gets a start doesn't mean that Perry Orth won't play. I mean, they've been playing 2 quarterbacks all year. So, no need to change that now. Still have some time for Perry to get in there. So that's my take on week 2 of the college football season with our South Carolina Gamecocks. So, that's it for now. We'll see you next week. Go Gamecocks.